Hey, nice to have you with us again today. Over halfway through my self-isolation, the whole little family unit is um, getting a little bit antsy at this stage and wanting to get out and start doing things. I think the only one who is not as antsy as the rest of us is little Cameron, who is 11 years old, and he's been isolated in his playroom. Yes, that's right, with a PlayStation and all those things. I do sometimes think that when he's supposed to be online learning, it's not always online learning. He's learning about other things online that are a lot more fun than listening to a teacher. But anyway, that's how life goes. Nice to have you with us, and it's the fun part of the week that starts now. We've done the business, we've done the legal, we've done the medical side of it. Now we start having fun, building up to the weekend. And what better way to have fun than to talk travel? And we're joined in the studio by Kirsty Rebello, who is head of commercial supply for a Flight Centre Travel Group. Kirsty, thank you very much for coming into our studio. There's still this confusion around travel and all the rest of it. And we thought we'd take a look specifically today at one particular venue, and that's London, because I think that is probably one of the most sought after destinations by the South African market, either if they're going to London or going to visit people in England, or they're moving through London to another venue in the world, or another country in the world. Just give us the update there. What's the status with London?
Well, travel in general remains pretty complex, and London is no different. So, direct carriers haven't been flying into South Africa, so the likes of British Airways and Virgin Atlantic. But exciting news is Virgin Atlantic is due to start their direct flights. And, with that then creates more confusion because who's allowed to go?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's another thing to unpack.
Okay, well, they've got these various lists in the UK. I mean, you've got the green, the amber, and the red. Am I correct in saying that?
Yes. And South Africa is very much still on that red list, which does make travel complicated for us. Tourists are not permitted into the UK.
Just off the top of your head, if you do know, what are some of the countries that are on the green list?
So the likes of like New Zealand, for example, Singapore, I'm not going to give you the whole list. It changes on a bi-weekly basis. So actually this week is the week that they set to review that green list. Chances are we won't be on it.
Sure.
Yeah.
So at this stage, a South African traveling into Heathrow still has to go into isolation. Is it still a 2-week isolation period?
Yes, it's a 10-day quarantine. So tourists aren't allowed from here into the UK. However, if you are going and you're a returning resident, or if you've got a visa to go back into the UK with, in other words, you are going to stay there indefinitely or work, then you need to go into the government allocated hotels for quarantine, which is a 10-day period.
Now, just out of interest, if there are people who do qualify for that and they are looking at going back to the UK, those government appointed quarantine areas, that I believe, and it changes all the time, so we've got to keep updating it. That I believe is at your own cost as well.
It is, and it's a significant cost. I mean, the last time I checked, it was around 70,000 Rand a person for those 10 days.
Wow, jeepers!
So it's a
That's
substantial.
a whack of money. That's a whack of money to pay just to sit on your own.
Exactly.
Do you still have to then take COVID tests and all the rest of it, even if you are part of
Yes, you do.
that grouping?
Yeah, so you would need
And what are the rulings there?
you would need your PCR test before you left South Africa, 72 hours prior to departure.
Right.
You'd then also need to do another test on arrival, and then there's a 2 day later that you need to do another test, also at your own cost.
Jeez. Okay. Now you mentioned earlier that the Virgin Atlantic um, travel group are looking at flying directly in there. It may be a good point to zoom in Liesel Gerke here, who is with Virgin Atlantic. Liesel, thank you very much for taking time out to join Kirsty and I on this particular discussion. Why the hell would Virgin Atlantic be starting direct flights from? I take it it's our Tambo, or is it Cape Town? You can correct me if I'm wrong there. Why would you be looking at doing direct flights into Heathrow?
Maybe, Jeremy, thank you very much for having me. And maybe I'll just rewind a little bit and explain what's happened over the last sort of 6 months. So towards the latter part of last year, the government the UK government put a restriction on South African travellers who, because of this new South African variant, a COVID variant, that nobody could fly between South Africa and the UK on a direct flight. So you could still go to the UK via another city, via Europe or the Middle East, but direct operations that impacted Virgin Atlantic and British Airways had to cease to operate. And what changed is that earlier in the month of June, the UK government made a revision to that regulation, and they said that from June onwards, those carriers who fly directly between the UK and South Africa can resume their travel. So that's really the big reason why we are resuming our flights between the UK and South Africa, because we now have the okay to do so. And secondly, yes, it is still very restrictive for all of the reasons that Kirsty explained. But there is a group of people who still want to commute between South Africa and the UK, whether it is for work or personal or whatever reason they want to travel between, because they have to relocate, or if they want to see family members. And yes, it is still very, very restrictive. You have to have a British passport, or you have to have one of the specific visas that the UK government indicates you need to travel on. There are some people who want to do it. And yes, it does mean that you have to quarantine for 10 days on arrival in the UK in a government appointed hotel at the cost of £1,750 for the first person, and then additional cost for additional people to stay in the same room. But there is a demand for people who want to do that. And for that reason, we will be restarting our services from the 24th of June, first flight in 3 times a week.
And that is into our Tambo.
Correct, yes. So we'll be operating between our Tambo and London Heathrow. Our Cape Town service is a seasonal service, and we hope to restart that by the end of this year. I mean, obviously the red list is very restrictive. I mean, essentially the UK government is giving a very strict advice to British tourists to not travel to restricted countries, to red countries, or even amber countries. They give very, very sort of strict regulations associated with that. So we hope to obviously move down on the travel restriction list to possibly an amber or green later this year, at which point in time we will restart our Cape Town service, knowing that the British public is the #1 tourist market for South Africa. It's a very, very big part of our aviation or tourism income into South Africa. It comes from the UK. So it's in our interest to restart the Cape Town service at the right time.
Okay, Kirsty, back to you. Just to make something clear here, even if you do fly through the UK, or let me put it this way, is it possible to use the UK as a jump-off point to go into other areas around the world? Or do you still have to go into the quarantine in the UK before you can get out to another country? Do you know what I'm trying to get at here?
Yes. So you can fly via the UK to another country, so long as that country is allowing South Africans to travel to it. You would be exempt from the quarantine if you are just staying airside and transiting onto another country.
So if I wanted to, for any reason, I could actually fly Virgin Atlantic to the UK and then transit to the Maldives, where we are allowed to go, for example.
Yes, that you could do.
Okay. Any from either of you? Let's go back to. Let's firstly start with Liesel. What advice, Liesel, could you give to travelers who are planning to travel to the UK?
So that's a really good question. And the top tip that I would say to anyone who needs to travel from South Africa to the UK is that you need to pre-purchase that hotel quarantine package before you buy your plane ticket. So there's a whole host of countries on the red list. And all of these countries that the UK have placed on the red list need to quarantine for 10 nights on arrival at a government-appointed hotel, which means there may not be enough hotel rooms for everyone who needs to quarantine. So don't arrive at the airport with your flight ticket to London, not having pre-booked your hotel quarantine. Now, the package, the 1,750 Rand package, it's an inclusive package of all your meals. It's got your PCR, COVID tests included in it. So it's kind of like everything that you need for that 10-night period. And obviously, if you test negative throughout, you'll be released after 10 nights. But if you need to stay on, you obviously can just stay on the hotel for extra nights. So my number one tip is please make sure that you book the quarantine hotel at the same time as you make your flight booking or just before, so that you don't get stuck and have bought yourself an air ticket and then can't travel because you've not sorted that out beforehand. And that is only in place until such time as South Africa moves from the red list to the amber list. And then that government hotel quarantine is not a requirement anymore. So this may just be something that is in place for short term, but certainly for the near term future.
Yeah, very good advice. It's actually something that it had never occurred to me. You know,
it's foreign. I know it's foreign for all of us.
Yeah, I mean, I think, Kirsty, I think we all presume, or maybe because you guys are in the travel industry, you don't presume, but I think a lot of people who would want to travel do presume a lot about these and don't even make any sort of plans ahead of that. Have you got any other advice for people who are traveling to the UK, Kirsty?
Yeah, well, I think just for traveling anywhere, and certainly back in pre-COVID times, you know, travel was fairly complex in any case, but certainly now, even myself personally, I would enlist the advice of a travel professional, because today I could be telling you, well, these are the requirements, but you know, in a week's time it could change. And if you don't have that expert advice, you know, you'll be forking out money for no reason, where you've got to make changes and perhaps arrive at the destination and aren't allowed in. So it is really key to get that professional advice of someone that actually has access to the information as it changes.
Yeah, I think now more than ever, travel professionals are what people need. We were saying on this particular show, I don't know if it was last week or the week before, but we were just saying that there are some industries where you don't actually want to engage or need to engage with people in the industry. But in this particular industry, there's a vital need to have that travel professional behind you, because things are so fluid at the moment. And you need somebody at the other end of a phone or at the other end of a computer, or if you feel comfortable, at the other side of a desk, who is going to give you the advice that you need. Because as Liesel was saying, you know, I wouldn't have even thought about booking the quarantine room, and that's what you need the professional there for.
Yes, exactly.
Ladies, thank you very much for your insight. Thank you very much for your time. I see we've had some really interesting specials running on our ticker tape as well. You can take those details down and get hold of your nearest flight centre, either by phone or by email or by popping in as well. On behalf of everyone here at Mansfield today, if you are travelling anywhere, happy travelling. And to Kirsty and to Liesel, thank you very much for joining us on Mansfield today. Cherry bye, everybody. We'll catch you tomorrow.